How about, okay, there you go. Now my mic's working. This is Andrew. This one's called Shaking Off the Rust because this is the worst stream I have done, like maybe ever. I love it. But this is baby brain for you. So I'm gonna get my iPhone and I'm gonna be right back. Okay, now I'm back and I actually have viewers. If you're watching right now, this is Andrew's worst start to a stream ever, but of course I haven't done one of these in a couple years, so I'm gonna blame that. And gonna pop a couple tunes on my headset just to keep me going. Talk a little bit about ZBrush. If you got questions, feel free to throw them in the chat. Ask what's up. I'm just gonna be doing a little sculpting for Sculptober here. If you're one of my students, welcome. Check it out. If you're a former student, good to have you. And if you're just on the internet, just saw this and said, I wonder what this is. ZBrush, 3D sculpting, stuff like that. Feel free to ask questions. That's kind of my bag. I'm gonna start off. I've really been enjoying starting with the Dynamesh sphere lately, and I like that it's just a nice, simple way to kick off because I don't have to worry as much. Do not want to save. I don't have to worry as much about creating this topology and all that stuff right away. Something I've been playing with that I'm trying to integrate into my new workflow because I work a lot between different 3D programs, especially different sculpting programs, is using my little Joy-Con here as my my little input device. It's great because it's cheap compared to like a lot of the Artbox kind of specialty devices, and using a program called Joy2Key to pair this up, and hopefully this is doing its bag. So the idea is that these different sticks I've set to the 1 through 8 keys, which are all my little keys, and then I have all of these other ones set up for different commands, and I can do double functions, so I can go up and down subdivisions with these little buttons, but if I press and hold the up subdivision, it'll actually create a new subdivision. And so trying to like think about dual uses for these keys. I've got some ideas too to turn basically what's 17 different buttons into effectively 34 buttons right at hand, kind of thinking the way that gamers usually think with stuff like this. So it makes it pretty easy for me to just go to my move and then go to my clay buildup, change the size of my brush really quickly. So a couple things since I last streamed that I've really come around to on ZBrush especially is thinking about my range from my camera, because I want to start with breaking down my biggest shapes first. I find that a lot of times, we start here because we want to fill the object in the frame. We want to think about it as full-sized, but more often than not, we don't really need that much distance, and it actually gets us to think about details we're not ready to put in yet. So instead, I've been taking to zooming out a lot farther in my initial stages, even though it's very small on the screen, because it's the read that I'm concerned with. I'm trying to get the overall shape, and I don't want to be distracted by anything else at the moment. I'm going to be doing today's theme is boom, and so I'm going to be doing one of the characters from a sprite-based game I worked on called Plunder Panic that I did all the characters for. Check it out, great game, really fun. It's on Steam, early access, 6-on-6 player madness, one of my favorite party games, and I had the pleasure of working on it with some incredibly talented people, so shout out to you Plunder Panic people. It's coming out for pretty much every console and program, but it's the one I like to use it on. And my document size, I don't like this. Let's up my width. Yes. So trying to narrate as I go. You know, like I said, I keep it pretty simple with this, and I'm trying to go big shapes. And if I'm looking at the characters I'm trying to do, I always have my reference off to the right side, even though I designed the characters. Oh wow, you're still modded. Look at that. What's up, Dewey? This is Andrew Bonchik, affectionately known as Dewey, the lead artist on Plunder Panic. Did some really, really cool stuff. How's it going, Andrew? I feel like professionally I should call you Andrew now. What's retail play? Sounds fun. That's cool. I like that a lot. Do you have anything in game yet? Yeah, well, you're busy. I'm mostly doing Sculptober this year, and I don't have time because I have a baby, and I really have been away from CG art for almost 3 months. I've been trying to do a little bit on the side whenever I can, but it's really hard to when the baby's in the mix. They're very needy. Nice. Yeah, you're gonna have to when you can actually show me some of the stuff you've worked on. You'll have to tell me about it. Kind of my goal is I want to do like I used to do a lot more streaming. And I think for me it's a lot more motivating than doing work on my own. I've always liked the performance aspect and I don't mind people judging me. I mean everybody's life's crazy right now. Yeah, if you just popped in, you kind of missed I was talking a little bit about it earlier. But I've sort of taken my I don't know if I like that. I've sort of taken my um, whole approach to using my Joy-Con to the next level. Everything's got like double button functions, which is pretty nice. I gotta add more stuff though. Like I need more buttons in different spots. I'm trying to like redo my UI because I need to completely recustomize it. So, like split, unmasked. I really want by itself because I use that pretty frequently. Although I guess what I want is split masked. There we go. Yeah, I'm used to the keyboard too. I think the reason I want to do this and I'm trying it out is because I have multiple keyboards and setups, and I also have been working a lot and doing a lot of sculpting inside of Blender as well, and that really can confuse my whole workflow. And so I'm trying to see if I can use this as sort of my bridge. So no matter what program I'm working in, the hotkeys are more similar than they are dissimilar, which hopefully will help me out, making things a little bit more straightforward. Yeah, for sure. Feel free to pop in anytime. I'm gonna just be doing this for like the next, like I said, 2 hours. Trying to get a good kind of like little stream going. It's mostly just about getting my feet back under me. Cause it's been a while. And I'm also like kind of like reworking out a lot of my workflow as I go here because it's been a while since I've come back from it. And the experience of using other 3D programs has really given me some different ideas on how I want to work in this program. There we go. Just trying to take my own classic advice. Work low, work slow. Build up as you go. Been a while since I've blocked out a character in uh in this program. I feel like I've been doing so much more of my blocking in Blender lately, which I really like. But I tend to overthink things if I'm in Blender. So I'm more just here to say, all right, let's see how quickly I can run through my character gen process. I'm gonna just ignore everything else and just focus on the bust right now. The fun part anyway, right? So now that I'm ready to go into the next like head level of detail, it's time for me to build this next guy out. I'm just doing a rough shape of some of my main features. You can see how much you can really define of a character even at a really low resolution. One of the things I like to do with this whole process is really as quickly as possible, I want to get the eyes in, because to me the eyes really define a lot about how everything else is going to go. And these are more like, I kind of base the character designs on Mega Man, like Mega Man X especially, like their proportions and scale, because of the way our game was playing. You needed a character that was, when there's a lot going on the screen, they needed to be relatively small but pretty readable. So we opted for really sprite arty kind of look, give it that retro feel, which at the time the game started was very in vogue. Not that we don't love it now, but it was definitely the way to go back then. So just a simple Dynasphere, rotate it on 90 degrees, move it over, scale it down, and since it's going to be more like a flat eye, angled out a little bit because it will be a little bit more, like I said, a little bit more almost anime, but like mostly that like really classic retro kind of character look. More stuff I want to bring over. Whenever I want a new UI, I just kind of take stuff as I go and I ask myself, what am I currently using? And every time I need a new thing, oh, Control and Alt. There we go. If anyone's watching this and thinking, no, I'd like to give Sculptober a try, but I'm not very good. I'm not very fast. That's fine. It's kind of what it's for. This is how you get fast. It's just practicing every day. I can promise you right now, oof, I'm feeling real rusty in this whole program. Probably should have stuck with a keyboard, but if you know me, you know I always love to try something a little wacky and a little new. So now that I'm at like an 80 resolution, this is where I like to start defining some of the planes and shapes. I feel like you're not quite ready for that yet until we get to this stage. Man, faces are fun. That's what I like about character art especially. Faces are just like, I find really motivating. And even though I'm doing like really stylized kind of character work, having a good knowledge of core anatomy is, I think, really essential. It can only help you. It's never going to hurt you. And sometimes studying it is really time consuming, but I always find it really worth it. And you can just get so much out, like really subtle stuff, and you know what you're trying to exaggerate. I think that's where a lot of new artists can go wrong, is they get so concerned with like they want a specific aesthetic that they really like. It's what made them like art in the first place. Oh, I love this comic book character. I love this cartoon series. I really want to do stuff like that. And I would encourage you to figure out who the influences of the people you influence are and try to copy them, because that's how the work you love got made. And reverse engineering sometimes some of those references is like a really good way to sort of jumpstart, but also develop your own style. Because what you're hoping to do is eventually not just be good at saying like, oh, I can draw just like this person or that person. You want to draw like you. And especially if you're interested, I mean, if you're just as a hobby, that's totally fine. If you want to do it professionally though, that's what you got to do. You got to look like, your work has to look like your work. And it should be unmistakably yours. But that's where I'm saying is like the having your own style. So like a good example of that is JoJo's Bizarre Adventure is like a really classic example of, man, the can't recall the guy's name at the moment, but the lead on that has like such a distinct, unique style. But his influences, he loves like classical anatomy, especially like Michelangelo and other Renaissance painters are like the people he cites as his key influences. And that really helped him hone in and develop his own unique style. Give this guy a little bit more of a hooded brow. And without that, you're just copying somebody else. And you want to copy the copy, the copy, the copy, and keep working your way back. And I think that's how you create some really interesting stuff and create your own unique style. Okay, I'm starting to remember where a lot of these buttons and stuff are and how to do a lot of this. This is where I love flowing into it. So I'm really pushing the limits of my current subdivision, but that's okay. That's kind of what I want to be doing. Another thing I'm probably going to do next right away is his beard, because it's a really important feature. Let's use my mask lasso. Help me get a little bit of that. Chin. Checking it from a bunch of different angles. Okay, and this character, one of his main features, he's got a big knit cap and a beard, but is otherwise bald. So that's going to be where I want to go next. Is let's go ahead and say like the beard I think is such a defining feature of this particular character. So let's split points, make sure my move is on, go back, up my draw size by a lot. And this is how I generally like to do things like hair. Especially like beards and stuff. Given room for the mouth. There's some people out there who really like using stuff like this and they never use smooth. Smooth is almost like an erase. And just the way like any artist, like if you do a lot of 2D or like concept art, you might have heard some people say, hey, you got to really practice never using an eraser. Like practice drawing with pen. It's great because you learn how to make really purposeful lines. And it's a similar thing if you're doing, especially if you want to do more what I would call that AAA looking character art, like learning to do your sculpting without having any smoothing, because you build up really interesting shapes. But because I'm doing something that's a little bit more stylized and I want it to be a little chunkier, and I don't mind if things end up looking a little artificially smooth, because I'm trying to almost go for like a plasticine look with a lot of this. That's fine by me. Okay, so that's this is a decent start for my beard shape. And let's think about a little bit more. Let me look up my, always have reference up. Like I'm still thinking about it and being like, oh, I'd like design these characters, and I'm trying to remember how to actually do it. And I think that's like I'm trying to remember what the character looks like, and I'm like, I designed the character. So I don't know, let that be a lesson to all of you. Yeah, sure, he wears a hat. Oh, he's got big bushy eyebrows too. That's a crucial element for this character. Let me toss those in. Using my bit brush. Eyebrows are great because they really help you define like a mood or attitude about the character. And I feel like this dude's a little softer. He's sort of a friendly old pirate. He's been out and about, seen a lot of stuff. A lot smaller with this. Just using my clay buildup to build some interesting shapes, and then I can always grind it out a little bit. There we go. Now for the hat. kind of deal. I mean, something like a hat I'd consider modeling because it's supposed to be more of like that floppy tucked over thing. I'd consider doing the Z modeler stuff. It's been a while since I've done anything with Z modeler, so that means it's a good time to do it. Whenever I'm using Z modeler, I love to start with the polystar because it's easy for me to grab and see which asset it is because I'm never going to mistake it for anything else. And then I can come into initialize and I'm going to go with a cylinder. So I want a Y cylinder. Oh, yeah. There we go. I think I need more resolution in Y. Oh my goodness. Is that it? Oh, there it is. Give it a little bit more of a hat shape. I'm gonna go ahead and I realized I didn't do let's group all of these. I need a key to do group by mask. And maybe that's a hotkey, but maybe that's a thing I press on one of these buttons. Haven't decided yet. For now, I'll drag that down. I do this so that I can go crease polygroups and I can turn on dynamic subdivision. Let's set this to taper. So this kind of like curve tool workflow, I really like. This would be a shape that would be a lot harder to make without it. Wonder resolution is at 6. Okay. Let's see if I remember which button this is. Okay, great. I want to do polygroup a polyloop. Then I'm going to do QMesh a polygroup island. Increase these polygroups. Turn dynamic back on. So under my crease settings, I can change my crease level. And under my dynamic subdiv, I can go for my smooth subdivisions. And so between these two, I lower this down and increase this. I can sometimes create some nice, you can see little soft shapes to things and still keep it pretty dynamic. And now I have something relatively low topology that's pretty easy for me to work with. Right, about a half hour in, and I've got a decent start to my head. I think what I want to do is really fill out the rest of the body. I can start working from there. If I had more time, I would spend more time just working on the body and getting it, like the head, and getting it exactly where I wanted. But since I'm trying to do this in about 2 hours, I want to get it done a little bit quicker. This guy's kind of defined. He's not a, he's a pretty muscly dude, but he's got that real functional. He's been living on a ship his whole life. Not like he goes jogging. He does a lot of hauling though. And so he's got a lot of his physical development is tied up. He's going to be tied up in his arms. And I don't like how this is looking with the arms. So I'm going to do it the way I should have done it from the beginning, but I was feeling lazy, where I actually build it out of multiple pieces. So I'm going to go ahead and do it the right way. Sphere 32. Let's do split. Go into this tool. Control drag, or is it Control Alt drag? There it is. It's duplicate. So what I'm going to do with these, turn on my masking, and I'm going to clear this. And before I do, I'm going to turn off Dynamesh because I just want to leave it in the shapes right now. And I'm going to do auto groups, and I'm going to use move topological so that I can be moving stuff build out sort of my deltoids. This is going to be my biceps, and he's, like I said, I want this guy to have pretty beefy arms. He does like a lot of hauling. I'm going to try to build this like as like the pectoral. I might have to just sculpt that up. I think it's going to interrupt too much. I'm going to take this instead. Like build it across. And smooth it back. One of the problems I'm running into though is because I didn't build stuff and then you forget, is I built the body at the same time. So I've got a lot more working with subdivision wise here than I need at this initial stage, but I can make it work. So like I said, I always kind of imagine this guy as almost like one of those world strongman competition kind of body types, where he like looks kind of fat at first, and then you're like, he's giving me a real dwarf vibes too, which is, kind of a Torbjorn. So most of the time I spend in a project like this is just in this stage, just playing with shapes and seeing what works. And I'm probably thinking more about musculature than's really necessary for a project like this, but it helps me because it's how I keep all the key things in. Okay, that's looking a lot better, which means I probably need to redo how I did the legs, because as I'm going and I'm getting back into my rhythm of stuff, it's sort of reminding me, oh yeah, this is how you're supposed to do it. And this is looking better. And so trying to just stick with it. Do things the quote unquote correct way. Oh, I definitely need a butt. Like, not a necessary detail for the character, but again, something I like to definitively put in because it's a good landmark for me to work with. Everything tapers too. Way more interesting if your shapes kind of taper in. Okay. I think we've got some decent shapes to work with here. So now I'm going to kind of merge. I'm going to do these arms and actually dynamesh them. So let's try 40. That's pretty good. And again, some people really see this as a bad move to smooth as much as I'm smoothing, but this is how I like to work on stylized characters. If I was doing a more realistic character, I wouldn't use clay buildup as much. What I'd use is the more traditional clay, and then you use it in like smaller sizes, and you do more like building and removing a form, and it's really purposeful. The nice thing about clay buildup with smooth is like you sort of run it, and depending on like if I make running along it this way and then I smooth it back, it can give me like some nice subtle flat angles moving this way. And then if I want to like build up those forms. So like, let's say I wanted to make two distinct muscles on here. The way I do that is kind of draw this out here and this out here. And then I can, with my clay buildup, then work over it to sort of build its shape up. And you can see that gives me like two pretty big masses. And so depending on what you're trying to do with it, you might run across and sort of kind of cross hatch it that way, or you might run it really straight. But it's all, you know, depending on what you're trying to do with it. A little bit of Damien standard is nice to help you create some very specific divisions about where you want things to go. And then I can come back in with something like a clay buildup and just build those up. Oh, Nathan, miss you too. And congrats again on the new gig. I'm glad you listened to me and just decided to become a level designer. One of my worst qualities is I like being right. But I'm really happy, man. Now, muscle-wise, the forearm muscles, I really need to do a pretty deep study of these. For a stylized character, I do them well enough, but let's do a little trim dynamic. Trim dynamics is one of those tools that I didn't use a ton. Like masking, it's something I was always like, didn't know how to control it well enough. So I didn't really use it when I first started off, even though now it's like finding those flat planes is a really essential part of my workflow. So for this character right now, I think I'm just going to stick with kind of making a fist, at least for this stage. You know, I can always come back in and replace it with a more detailed hand. But like hands are like the most time consuming part of art. Like faces are also time consuming, but at least faces are really fun. And hands aren't not fun, it's just like, especially, that's why I think a lot of artists tend to use like a pre-made hand or a pre-made ear. It's like you do it enough and you're like, man, I know how this is gonna go. It's gonna take me forever. And who wants to spend all the time on it? And now if you're a kind of person that's just like, man, I love just doing this kind of thing. I love sculpting in little details like that. Then, you know, character art might be for you. I don't like those. I guess I kind of like this like really meaty, like almost no wrist, because it feels kind of correct for this dude. Sometimes one of the reasons I like doing this is there's like a lot of detail that you can't really put into the character when they're in like a 2D shape, that when you finally get it into this kind of format and you get really into 3D, like you can add a lot of extra detail. And so it's like this opportunity to be like how I pictured the character, like how I want to define him. I'm really sculpting a lot of detail now that's like never making it into the character. Like you're never going to see. But I do it anyway because it's fun. Okay, now definitely feel like his neck needs to be a lot thicker to kind of account for how, bulky I've made a lot of the other parts of him. It's coming now. Still thinking, like, really regretting not putting the hands in separately, but, well, this is what you get sometimes. Now, a lot of people really hate this pose tool. I don't dislike it as much as a lot of people seem to. I think it's definitely got its perks, like something like that, being able to just rotate the arm into a more neutral pose. Much harder to do in some other formats. Okay, almost an hour in. I got the character arms and everything. I need to kind of get moving on it, so I think this might be time to, before I combine the arms with everything else, I got to go back to this head. Again, I really regret not combining it all together because I know I'm going to run into some really annoying difficulties in, like, now I'm trying to detail up some parts of the face, but that's going to require me to add so much more to the body because it's going to try to evenly distribute everything. And there's ways around that, but let's just go up to something like a 160. Okay. And this is going to give me the space I need to build some like eyelids for the character. There's a lot of methods. A lot of people have different ways of doing eyelids. They're all fine. Definitely one of my favorite methods is to use a sphere that I divide out into half because you can get some, like taking a sphere and like splitting it, you can get some really great shapes that way. But in the interest of time, sometimes you try to save yourself time and you cost yourself more time because you're doing a sloppier method. I'm just trying to like not be perfect and be fast instead, which has its own cost for sure. So for me, using Damien Standard to define the eyes is like a pretty quick and dirty. Let's see. Okay, it's not so bad. Honestly, I've done worse. Now that I have eyelids, I can kind of work on the eye shape. More want to square things off. Yeah, I've got the overall shape I want, but I feel like for now, for the style that I want, the eyes just feel too small. I'm gonna really open them up a little bit more. Trying to get something a little square and a little larger. Okay. Let me get a little bit of something working on these eyes too. Should have probably made like an eye shape first because they're a little annoying to fix here. So I might do. Hmm. Oh, I need to turn off perspective. There we go. Trying to get a little bit of an eye kind of cornea in here. Okay, that'll be enough to give me an idea. Sorry. There we go. Took a little bit of working to get exactly what I wanted. But we should be good now. Oh my god. It's definitely not doing what I'm expecting it to do. Oh, it's because I don't have mirror on. He looks so sad. Hmm. Made the eyeball way too big. I'm gonna say I'm spending too much time on this part. I'm gonna hide you, I'm gonna bring you back. I want this nose to have a lot more form to it. Just doing the eye manually here. That should be good enough for what I need to do here. It's been my mantra lately is like, is it good enough? I find like sometimes if I just get I can get too obsessed over a feature or something being perfect. Like I don't have to worry about convincing myself to do something, you know, flawlessly, like with such specificity. But I do have to convince myself to like move on. I guess again, one of the fun things about this whole field because every part of it could be done to such an insane level of detail. Okay. And what do we say? Probably good enough. So right now this is a Dynamesh, and it's a lot of active points, and it's not always a good thing. And so I think, because I'm going to do the arms and legs and the bottom separately, I'm going to do the legs, I'm going to do this whole body, and I'm going to combine it with the feet. I'm going to split it up, and then I think I got, a little less than an hour left, and so if I can get a good Z-remesher out of this, I can build all the other parts relatively quickly. Especially, I might even use Blender for some of the hard surface stuff because I can just do it so much faster. Although I didn't test if my GoZ Blender plugin is working, and it's probably not with my current version now that I think about it. Okay, I'm going to combine all these. I'm going to pull this back so I can use this. Yeah. To sort of define the gluteus maximus. Perspective is still off. Not always the wisest move. Okay. I'm digging it. Let's start combining these pieces together and then I can make up some clothing and maybe model like a quick bomb to just justify that today qualifies as boom. And oh, you know what I haven't done yet? Save it. I don't think we ever came up with a name for this guy, but I'm gonna call him Burly. We'll call this day one. Boom. You know what I should do is just make like all the ZBrush projects with their names. And that way everyone can kind of like, I can open them up one at a time. Okay. Now for the fun part. Do merge down, and give it a pretty decently high subdivision to go with. Okay. Just trying to like blend some of these transition areas. I'll leave that one for now. I have plenty of space to fix a lot of this. So now what I can do, duplicate it. Again, another save. What did I set up for save on this one? Oh, I guess I was just saying if I hold control and this, it'll save it. But I need to make a dedicated save button for sure. Anytime before I do a big process like this, I'm gonna leave this on top and hide everything else. And let's focus on this one right now. Oh, you know what? I gotta combine it with the feet still, so I can delete it. Where are my feet? They're up here. And being able to drag and drop these has been really nice. All right, I'm at a lot of points, 2.5 million. A little higher than I'd like to go with the Dynamesh, but certainly too high for me to work in Dynamesh. So it's time to do a ZRemesher on it. And I'm not going to worry about polygroups and getting the face exactly right. I'm never going to really take this to anything too complicated. Again, time-wise, I'm at about 40 minutes left before I got to call it a day. And so I don't really have time to go over remeshing the face and getting the poly loops exactly where I want them to. So we're just gonna take a default. Let's get down to about 2. Actually, let's start it with 5. And let's do zero measure and see what happens. It'll take a second, and what I like to do is rather than trying to like zero in on the exact size, because I want to get as low as I think I can get away with, and then dynamesh it and project. So I start with 5, which is like the default, because it works pretty well in most surfaces. And then I do, I switch the mode to half in zero measure, and I just rerun it because it runs half as really fast, because it can just, and it just knocks it out really quick. Actually, this is not bad. This is pretty good for what I want. Okay. So this is this is the lowest I would want to go. Any lower than this is going to be too hard to work with. So let's do project. And I just keep going up until I get and so now I'm like really up. And I'm close, like I'm above the size it was. So this is the highest I need to go by far. And I just took it up 1 division at a time, subdivided it, and then projected it every time. And as soon as it's done projecting, it'll be pretty easy for me to go up and down in subdivision levels, but also blessedly will make it a lot easier for me to make out clothing and stuff. I'm going to go up, down in divisions, and now I can take this. I'm going to drag it to the bottom because I usually don't need it. Turn on the other stuff. And so now I have this, which I can take down and up in subdivision. So I can go 11 and I can go up as much as I need to. Okay. Now let's take this and we're going to use it. I'm going to duplicate this whole thing. This one, I'm going to take down to the lowest division level. Let's solo it. Because I'm going to split this into, what do I got on this character? He's got like pants and a shirt and some little sleeve things. So he doesn't need sleeves on his shirt. That's good. So what I'm going to try to do, use my Z modeler. And I'm going to set it to cube mesh, delete poly loop. So that way, if I run it like this way, I'm gonna make this a little smaller. Oh, that's the thing I forgot to do. I gotta delete my higher subdivisions. So, nope, I need to go up to here. Okay, great. This is going to be tougher right where the arm is. So I'm probably going to end up using my Control Shift. Let's do select curve, like lasso. Get rid of these, and then I can do delete hidden. Groups. Change this to select rectangle. And then I can delete this hidden. And I only need one shoe. Be hidden. And now I can go to split. And I'm going to do split to part. And you, I can fix by just remeshing this again. And so I can set Z remesher to same. Actually, before I do that, another little trick here is to go to deformation and run polish so it smooths out everything. And then when I go to Z remesher, it'll try to keep everything nice and round. There you go. So now it's kind of got some round shapes. Not the greatest in the world, but I can always try to go down a little bit. I think this is fine for what I'm trying to do. Let's do one more. Okay, great. And then I can do deformation and do a little bit of inflate. One of the things that's super nice that they added pretty recently, especially nice for clothing, is in the dynamic whole setup of things. I can actually get, I want to make sure everything's right. Okay, my mic's still running. I can make sure in dynamic subdivision, I can actually do a thickness. Let's turn dynamic off, and I'm going to do increase polygroup dynamic on, and I can apply thickness. Which is just so great. Do a little crop top just right. And I'm gonna do these pants. And you know, I really like being able to work with a little bit of a lower division if I need to. So let's do the same thing. Zero mesh would be a good thing to add down here. You know, I'm trying to, again, rearrange all these things. I barely use these things up here. So let's do zero mesh, set to half. And you can see it, I can run it a couple times. That's maybe too low for me. And now I've got something a little bit more reasonable. Let's go back to geometry. And in that dynamic subdivision, I'm gonna turn on dynamic and I'm gonna take thickness. Let's increase polygroups, turn on dynamic, unsolo it. And let's give it a little inflate and deformation just to pull it out a little more. Now I got his culottes. Where are my shoes? There we go. With the shoes, let's solo this. And I think I want to make this like almost, it's more of a slipper. Like the French sailors used to wear slippers. It's a savati, means like something like slipper or silk foot because with the sailors on French ships. So I kind of think of him as like a French Canadian kind of guy. Is the vibe I always got from Burley here. 3 o'clock. I'm gonna delete these guys because I don't like how they turned out. And a new folder. This is gonna be backup. This is what I want to put in the folder so I don't accidentally use it. Okay. What else is this guy got going on? I guess this beard I want to really extend up. Let's turn off symmetry. I'm kind of liking maybe giving this a messier, almost like clay-like finish. Wonder what that would look like. And I said I was going to build it up and not use something like this, but I'm kind of liking the idea of not smoothing. And just doing something like this. Because this clay brush, other than clay buildup, kind of smooths as it goes. I'm kind of liking this look. Fun. I guess that's also what Sculptober is for. Experimenting. Now that I've got this too in this kind of mode, I can go back over with some stuff like my pinch brush. There it is. I guess if I want to make changes like this, I should go into a lot lower of a subdivision. Okay. Let's see. 15 minutes kind of left. I have some stuff on the model that's not in yet. I would love to have time to put in more like detail work. I really don't think I have time to put in like a bunch of kind of clothing and stuff detail, although I said I'd love to. I think this is the stage at which I need to, if I'm going to ever have it. What I need. So what I'm going to do, take you off of dynamic. I'm going to subdivide it. No. And then I can turn on dynamic, but set my dynamic subdivision to like 0, because this way I just get the thickness. Funny it's called standard brush, because I almost never use it for anything but clothing. It's great for that. Probably went overboard there, but I don't know, I'm having fun. A bunch of different kind of patterns of folds. Sometimes these are called like Z folds, and they tend to be memory folds around areas that bend a lot. And then anywhere that you have like stretching across, you tend to run like the length. I like to kind of go over, maybe do too much detail, and I kind of pop out, get that 1,000-yard read. And then, yeah, I know some people would find this, again, horrifying, that I'm obliterating all this detail that I sculpted. But to me, it's more of a draft. I think about it the same way I would think about like painting, where I would like start with really big blocky shapes. And I'm like really okay with overdoing it. I think like nice if I had a rope brush or something, because I would love to just sort of pop in and do like a little rope belt. Sure, they have something like that. What they've got here in terms of like rope brush. Like I know you can definitely download some, but I guess I could just go with a curved tube. It's not going to give me what I want. Because what you really want is like an insert multi-mesh. But I was just wondering, hoping maybe they had something by default in here. It doesn't look like it though. Like something like this curved tube is like the closest thing I see. Hmm. Oh, I can't do it on this mesh because of the multiple subdivisions. All right, well, I'm just about out of time for today anyhow, so we might as well. Hopefully I can get a little time to maybe, you know what? I got one thing I guess I should still make just to justify sculpting this guy out today. I was actually surprised. I didn't think, I thought I was just going to do a bust, and as I went, I was like, I think I'm going to do the whole thing. So let's do an append. Let's get you by yourself. I'm going to use the Z modeler tool. Under initialize. Actually, what I want to turn this into is 3D sphere. Man, I should have used my eye. I made my eye into this. I forgot about these. This is great. Okay. Perspective off. QMesh, polygroup island. to extrude. And I wonder if I can get this to go straight. Yeah, well, can't. That's okay. Actually, I think I need more divisions for what I want to do. Okay, so now I think what I got options wise. Trying to think if I have a good way of just doing like a random scale. Oh, you know what? I'm going to use Noisemaker. Surface, noise. Let's. What do I go like real high with this strength? Not quite what I want. I think I have to come to the end of my stream anyway. No! Okay. Abnormal termination. It's going to be quick saved. I think it's as good as a part to stop my first stream. What a way to end. Just like my computer crashing. You know, it's not bad. 2 hours for character sculpt, body, clothing. Started working on accessories. Didn't quite get to things like earrings and definitely didn't get to texturing or anything like that. But, you know, that's what we're trying to do. My goal is to do 2 hours a day, just see how far I get into making a character, and maybe next time get more sculpting. I'll be back again next Friday, doing another live one. Most of the other sculpts I'll probably not record or not stream throughout the week because I'll be doing all Sculptober, but I'll try to post every week my updates where I'm at. For those of you tuned in, thanks for tuning in. If you're watching this later, you know, feel free to ask questions on the video or whatever else, and happy to help anybody out. Thanks for tuning in on my Dustin the Rust Off sculpt session post baby. Good to see folks who dropped in, and looking forward to seeing people in class in person. Bye now.